My wife had always been adamant that she would never get pregnant or have a child for anyone. It was something she made crystal clear since the beginning of our relationship. I respected that and built my expectations around it. But everything came crashing down when I returned home from a 2-month business trip, only to discover that she was already a month into a pregnancy. The timeline didn't add up, and neither did the loyalty I thought we had. Fernando, listen up. Julia, never wanted kids, because no man is worth the torment of a 10-month pregnancy. I said that at a company dinner. As I left the gathering, I felt the stares of those around me. When I got home, I found a package waiting, Julia's pregnancy test. She was 1 month along, and I had just returned from a 2-month business trip. Despite the betrayal, I felt strangely relieved. I calmly called Julia and said, "Let's schedule our divorce." "What are you talking about?" she snapped. "Just because I won't have kids for you. You want a divorce?" Her tone dripped with scorn. "Look at this little sock. Shouldn't we have one for our baby?" Came a soft, masculine voice. It was Miguel, her childhood friend. The call ended abruptly. I stared at the villa I once called home for 7 years, exhaling deeply. We bought the house outright before our marriage, but now it felt defiled. I decided to pack up and sell it. As I was packing, the door swung open, and Julia walked in with Miguel's arm around hers. "Fernando, where are the slippers? Miguel is cold. Can you grab a pair for him?" Julia ordered as usual. Miguel's smug smile and taunting eyes infuriated me. He leaned in and whispered, "Fernando, could you help us out?" I shoved my design sketches into my suitcase without a word or glance. Their presence made me feel as nauseated as being drunk in a bumpy ride with a sickly sweet perfume. "Are you deaf?" Julia yelled, tossing a high heel at me. I dodged and shot her a cold look, remaining silent. Only then did she notice my suitcase. Frowning, she asked, "What's going on?" "I told you on the phone, divorce," I replied flatly. Once, I had loved her deeply, but disappointment had piled up until love evaporated in an instant. "Fano, are you throwing a tantrum? I've told you before, I'm not into women." Julia was interrupted by Miguel's mocking tone. "Julia's just my best friend. Let's make amends, please." "I'll try not to bother you anymore, Julia," Miguel said. "Miguel, what did you do wrong?" I demanded. "It's your jealousy causing all this mess. It has nothing to do with you, just because I won't give you kids." Julia glared at me. "If I'd known you'd react this way, I wouldn't have married you." "It's not too late to leave," she hissed. I secured my suitcase and gathered my drawing equipment before heading for the door. "I'll list the villa with an agent. You should hurry and move out. You're selling our house." Julia shrieked, grabbing my arm. "Fernando, I'm only refusing to have kids. Is that really a reason for divorce? We agreed you wouldn't pressure me about children. You brought it up in front of everyone today. I only spoke my mind." "Don't touch me, you filthy," I snapped, shaking off her grip. "Filthy?" she shot back incredulously. "Are you out of your mind, Fernando? My anger flares up every time your blatant disdain shows. Isn't that enough? It was Enrique who mentioned the child today, not me. Even if it were, you should have saved face in front of others, but you didn't. Do you think so little of me? Who doesn't know you and Enrique are close?" "He was only echoing your thoughts," she snapped. "And what face do you think you need? I'm the company chairwoman. It's because I'm your wife that you still have any face left once we divorce." Her eyes filled with mockery as she stared at me. I fell silent, struggling to understand how she could be so callous. Seeing my silence, Julia thought she had me cornered. Pointing at me, she commanded, "Now apologize to Miguel immediately, or I won't forgive you. Fernando loves you so much, it's normal for him to be jealous." "No need to apologize," Miguel interjected, his tone both understanding and provoked. "Did you hear that, Fernando? I'm so kind and generous while you're always petty. If Miguel weren't interested in women, I might not have chosen you." "You've been such a disappointment," Julia sneered. Remaining silent, Miguel whined. "All right, Julia, don't be too hard on Fernando. Here's my apology. If he still isn't satisfied, I'll even kneel." To my surprise, he actually knelt before me. "Fernando, it's all my fault," he cried through tears. "Even though I'm not into women, I'm still a man. Being around Julia must be embarrassing for you. That's on me." I sincerely apologize and promised to cut ties with her. Julia's anger only intensified. Out of nowhere, she slapped me. I brushed her hand aside and stared coldly at them. "How dare you betray me and then hit me? How dare you?" she exclaimed, disbelief in her voice. Meeting her gaze, I said quietly, "Julia, I was on a business trip for 2 months while you were 1 month pregnant with someone else's child. Where do you get the nerve to shout at me?" I slammed the pregnancy report against her face. Her complexion drained instantly, and panic flickered in her eyes, only to harden into resolve in a heartbeat. "Fernando, I'm your wife. How dare you question me? Don't you trust me at all?" she shouted. "You're pregnant with another man's child and still have the nerve to yell at me. You really are something." I couldn't help but laugh in disbelief. "And just so you know, I never snooped. This report just arrived by courier." Miguel piped up, "Julia, maybe I filled out the wrong address, and that's why Fernando got mad. It's all my fault. It's not your fault." "This isn't a big deal," she snapped. "He shouldn't be angry over this." Shifting her cold stare back to me, Julia said, "Fernando, It's your filthy mind that makes everything dirty. How can you accuse me of being dirty when you're carrying another man's child? I countered. Her shamelessness deepened my disgust. I felt a mix of anger and unexpected relief. The truth was, I no longer loved her, so her betrayal hurt less than it might have. Yet, her brazen attitude only infuriated me. Then tell me, where exactly am I being dirty? I asked seriously. Julia fired back. The baby in my belly is Miguel's, but we didn't do anything. It was artificial insemination. I nearly laughed at her absurdity. What do you mean, so what? I pressed. Fernando, don't you have any compassion? Miguel's family has been pressuring him because of his sexual orientation. He wants a child to ease their worries. Since we grew up together, I felt obligated to help him, she continued. Would you really want to see Miguel suffer under that pressure? She asked, her tone sanctimonious, as if she'd performed some grand charity. I couldn't help but laugh at the absurdity. Julia, we've been married for years, and you wouldn't even consider having a child with me. Today, you publicly declared that no man is worth the pain of a 10-month pregnancy, and now you're pregnant with another man's child. Where's your dignity? She glared at me. So, you're still upset because I won't have your child? You're so petty. I'm just disappointed in you. I don't want to waste time arguing over your ridiculous logic. With a dismissive wave, I said, I'll prepare the divorce papers, and you should hurry up and move out. As I turned to leave, Miguel suddenly cried out, Julia, if you and Fernando divorce, our baby will be born into a single-parent household. He clearly hoped Julia would seize the chance to declare her love for him, avoiding single parenthood. But Julia grabbed my arm with disgust. Fernando, stop making a scene. You heard what was said. If we divorce, this baby will be raised without both parents. You can't be so heartless. So what do you mean? I asked. Are you suggesting we stay married and raise the child together with Miguel? I wanted to knock some sense into her. It was unbelievable. Miguel jumped in again. Fernando, you don't need to worry about this. Once the baby is born, I'll be around to help, and then we'll all live happily as a family of 4. I couldn't help but laugh in disbelief. Miguel nodded earnestly. Fernando, isn't that a good thing? Good? Are you out of your mind? Julia has no brains. Do you really think I'm an idiot? What normal man would let his wife carry another man's child? I scoffed, shrugging off Julia's grip as I headed for the door. Fernando, that's so rude. How can you talk like that? Julia rushed after me. I turned to give her a cold look and said flatly, Julia, we're adults. Let's keep some dignity and sort out this divorce quickly. Then I stepped back toward Miguel, looked at his pretentious face, and threw a punch that sent him crashing to the floor, blood streaming from his nose. That punch was a clear warning, stay out of my way. If I were you, I'd focus on living with Julia, the trash, instead of bothering me. I warned, turning to leave. Fernando, you've lost your mind. How can you hit someone? And who are you calling trash? Julia shouted. Still my wife. She lunged at me in one swift motion, but I slapped her hard, sending her sprawling. Listen closely, Julia. When I loved you, I could tolerate many things. But now that I don't love you anymore, think about yourself and remember how we got together in the first place. Julia couldn't believe I'd hit her. When she looked into my eyes and saw my resolve, panic flickered across her face. After leaving the villa, I drove to my spacious apartment near the company, a place I had bought some time ago but rarely stayed in. After a quick tidy up, I dove into work. The company was handling a massive project. The blueprints were in the final stages and needed to be finished urgently. In the past, Julia might have affected my mood and hindered my work, but with her gone, I felt a sense of relief. I pushed through until midnight, adding the final touches to the project. After a few hours of sleep, I headed straight to the office. Such a significant project required the final design draft to be presented at the board meeting. While discussing project issues with the board members in the conference room, the door was suddenly flung open. Julia stormed in with Miguel and a dozen security guards. Miguel, now dressed in a sharp suit, no longer appearing effeminate, wore a smug smile. Fernando, you're fired. Get out now. Miguel pointed at me, as if I were a stray dog being kicked away. I nearly burst out laughing at his theatrical dismissal. The room, once silent, filled with confused looks and murmurs. The board members, who knew my work well, exchanged glances, unsure how to react to the absurd scene unfolding. I took a deep breath and composed myself. Looking directly at Miguel, who still wore his smug smile, I said calmly, Miguel, I don't know who gave you this illusion of power, but this company is mine, and there's nothing you can do to remove me. He blinked, unsettled by my calm tone, but before he could speak further, I continued, oh, and by the way, storming into a private meeting with security isn't just against company policy, it's a crime. I'll enjoy suing you for trespassing and public harassment. His face turned red with anger, but he tried to maintain his composure. Fernando, this is ridiculous. Julia and I own the company now, he declared. She transferred her shares to me, and I'll run things my way. That's when I noticed Julia standing behind him, arms crossed, her expression as contemptuous as ever. Did you really think I wouldn't have a plan for you, Nando? While you worked day and night, I made sure everything would fall under my control, and now you're out. It was unbelievable. Julia, the woman I'd shared my life with for years, now stood beside Miguel, actively trying to destroy everything I had built. Instead of exploding with anger, I smiled a cold, ironic smile. You two really think you caught me off guard, don't you? I said, pulling out my phone and scrolling through my gallery. First of all, Julia, you seem to have forgotten one small detail. The transfer of shares was done illegally. Our marriage agreement includes a clause that forbids the sale of shared assets without my consent. And as far as I can see, you never consulted me. Julia's face paled for a moment before she quickly recovered. That doesn't matter. I have proof that you're not a trustworthy husband. Do you think no one will believe me? At that moment, I connected my phone to the projector and began playing a video. A recent recording of a conversation between Julia and Miguel that I had secretly captured days before I moved out. In the video, Julia outlined her plans to deceive the company, transfer the shares, and ultimately get rid of me. Her panicked expression as the video played was priceless. Miguel, on the other hand, began visibly sweating. This doesn't prove anything, he stammered, voice trembling. You can't use private recordings against us. Oh, but I can, I replied calmly. Especially when they prove you're attempting fraud. I've already sent everything to my lawyer, and he's handling the rest. The meeting room fell completely silent. The board members now looked at Julia and Miguel with clear disdain. My tone hardened as I said, Julia, Miguel, you may try to destroy what I built, but you won't succeed. Now that I have enough evidence, not only will you lose this company, but you'll also face legal consequences. Julia tried to speak, but I raised my hand to silence her. Enough. This is over for both of you. I'll make sure everything you've done is exposed. The security guards, who had been standing like statues, began shifting uncomfortably, unsure of what to do. Then one board member, an older, respected man named Augusto, stood up. Fernando, I believe everyone here agrees that your leadership is indispensable. You have our full support to resolve this situation, he said. With Augusto's backing, Julia and Miguel began verbally attacking each other, each blaming the other for the fiasco. I left the meeting room, letting them drown in the chaos they had created. In the following days, the share transfers were reversed. Julia was formally charged with fraud in violation of our marital agreement. Miguel, trying to escape the accusations, fled but was soon found hiding in a rundown apartment. As for me, I regained full control of the company and, for the first time in months, felt completely autonomous. I was free from a woman who never respected me, and I had exposed her true nature, along with that of her accomplice who tried to play the villain. Today, I look back with no regrets. Julia and Miguel destroyed themselves while I rebuilt my life, stronger, more determined, and above all, proving that no one crosses me without consequences. The silence in the meeting room was almost palpable, broken only by Miguel's authoritative voice. Fernando, you're fired. Leave now. As if I were a stray dog being kicked away. Julia stood beside him, wearing that smug smile that made her think she had already won. I took a deep breath. My first instinct was to explode, but I knew that would only give them the spectacle they craved. Instead, I straightened my posture and looked around. The board members appeared visibly uncomfortable with how the meeting was unfolding. Some frowned, while others murmured among themselves. It was clear they didn't agree with the way Miguel and Julia were handling the situation. With all due respect, Julia, I began, directing my gaze at both her and Miguel, pausing strategically so my words could hang in the air. I understand that you both want to humiliate me publicly, but before I leave, I have the right to defend myself and clarify a few things. Julia rolled her eyes. Fernando, please. You're not important enough to need an explanation, are you? I shot back with a cold smile. Maybe not to you, but to this company, to the work I've done over the years. I believe my contributions speak for themselves. And more importantly, I wanted to knock some sense into her. It was unbelievable. Once again, Miguel jumped in. Fernando, you don't need to worry. Once the baby is born, I'll be here to help, and then we'll all be a happy family of 4, he said. I couldn't help but laugh in disbelief. Miguel nodded earnestly. Fernando, isn't that a good thing? Good? Are you out of your mind? Julia has no brains. Do you really think I'm that stupid? What normal man would let his wife carry another man's child? I scoffed, shrugging off Julia's grip as I headed for the door. Fernando, that's so rude. How can you talk like that? Julia rushed after me. I turned, giving her a cold look. Julia, we're adults. Let's keep some dignity and sort this divorce out quickly. I stepped back toward Miguel, stared at his smug face, and threw a punch that sent him crashing to the floor, blood streaming from his nose. That blow was a clear warning, stay out of my way. If I were you, I'd focus on living with Julia, the trash, instead of meddling in my life. I warned as I turned to leave. Fernando, you've lost your mind. How can you hit someone? And who are you calling trash? She shouted. Despite still being my wife, she lunged at me. I slapped her hard, sending her sprawling. Listen, Julia, when I loved you, I could tolerate a lot. But now that I don't, think carefully about who you are, and remember how we even got together in the first place. Julia stared, unable to believe I'd actually hit her. As she looked into my eyes and saw my resolve, a flash of panic crossed her face. After leaving the villa, I drove to my spacious apartment near the company, a place I had bought ages ago but rarely used. After a quick tidy up, I dove into work. The company was handling a massive project. The blueprints were in their final stages and needed urgent completion. In the past, Julia might have affected my focus, but with her out of the picture, I felt a deep relief. I worked relentlessly until midnight, adding the final touches to the project. After a few hours of sleep, I headed straight to the office. The project needed its final design draft presented at the board meeting. While discussing issues with board members in the conference room, the door was abruptly flung open. Julia stormed in with Miguel and a dozen security guards. Miguel, now in a sharply tailored suit, no longer his effeminate self, wore a smug smile. Fernando, you're fired. Get out now, Miguel declared, pointing at me like I were an unwanted stray. I almost burst out laughing at his theatrics. The once quiet room filled with confused looks and murmurs as board members exchanged glances, clearly unsure how to react to the absurd scene unfolding. I took a deep breath and composed myself. Locking eyes with Miguel and his self-satisfied grin, I said calmly, Miguel, I don't know who gave you this illusion of power, but this company is mine. There's nothing you can do to remove me. He blinked, unsettled by my calm tone. Before he could speak further, I added, by the way, storming into a private meeting with security isn't just against company policy, it's illegal. I look forward to suing you for trespassing and public harassment. His face turned red with anger as he struggled to maintain composure. Fernando, this is ridiculous. Julia and I now own the company, he declared. She transferred her shares to me, and I'll run things my way. That was when I noticed Julia standing behind him, arms crossed, her expression as contemptuous as ever. Did you really think I wouldn't have a backup plan, Nando? While you worked day and night, I made sure everything was under my control, and now you're finished. It was surreal. Julia, the woman I had shared my life with for years, now stood with Miguel, actively trying to dismantle everything I had built. Instead of exploding with rage, I gave a cold, ironic smile. You two really thought you caught me off guard, didn't you? I said, pulling out my phone and scrolling through my gallery. First of all, Julia, you seem to have forgotten. The share transfer was done illegally. Our marriage agreement explicitly forbids selling shared assets without my consent, and you never even consulted me. For a moment, her face showed panic before she quickly recovered. That doesn't matter. I have proof you're untrustworthy. Do you think no one will believe me? At that moment, I connected my phone to the projector and played a video, a recent recording of a conversation between Julia and Miguel that I'd secretly captured before I moved out. In it, Julia detailed her plan to deceive the company, transfer the shares, and ultimately get rid of me. Her panicked expression as the video played was priceless, while Miguel began visibly sweating. This doesn't prove anything, he stammered, voice trembling. You can't use private recordings against us. Oh, but I can, I replied calmly. Especially when they prove you're trying to commit fraud. I've already sent everything to my lawyer, and he's handling it. The room fell silent. Board members now looked at Julia and Miguel with clear disdain. My tone hardened. Julia, Miguel, you might try to destroy what I built, but you won't succeed. With this evidence, not only will you lose this company, but you'll also face legal consequences. Julia tried to speak, but I held up my hand to silence her. Enough. This is over. I'll expose everything you've done. The security guards, previously standing like statues, began shifting uneasily. Then one board member, an older, respected man named Augusto, stood up. Fernando, I believe everyone here agrees that your leadership is indispensable. You have our full support to resolve this matter, he said. With Augusto's backing, Julia and Miguel launched into a heated verbal fight, each blaming the other for the debacle. I left the meeting room, letting them drown in the chaos they'd created. In the following days, the illegal share transfers were reversed. Julia faced charges for fraud and breaching our marital agreement, and Miguel, trying to flee, was soon found hiding in a rundown apartment. I regained full control of the company, and, for the first time in months, felt complete autonomy. I was free from a woman who never respected me, and I had exposed her true nature along with her accomplices. Today, I look back with no regrets. Julia and Miguel destroyed themselves while I rebuilt my life, stronger and more determined than ever, proving that no one crosses me without consequences. The silence in the meeting room was almost palpable, only broken by Miguel's authoritative voice. Fernando, you're fired. Get out now. As if I were an unwanted stray. Julia stood beside him, her smug smile betraying her belief that she had already won. I took a deep breath. My instinct was to explode, but I knew that would only give them the spectacle they craved. Instead, I straightened up and surveyed the board members. Some frowned, others murmured among themselves. It was clear they didn't agree with how Miguel and Julia were handling this. With all due respect, Julia, I began, directing my gaze at both her and Miguel and pausing for effect. I think the board deserves to know why you're turning a personal issue into a professional crisis. That caught the board's attention. One member, Mr. Augusto, who had always been neutral, raised his hand. Julia, I believe Fernando has the right to speak given the potential impact of this decision on the company. Julia huffed, clearly irritated. If that's what you want, then let him speak. But he's only wasting our time. Ignoring her, I continued. Over the past few years, I've dedicated my life to this company. My contributions have been key to major projects' growth. I've never let personal issues spill into the workplace. Unfortunately, the same can't be said for Julia and Miguel. Miguel tried to interrupt, but I pressed on. What's happening here has nothing to do with my performance or professionalism. This attempt to fire me is nothing more than personal retaliation. Julia is, or was, my wife until I discovered she was pregnant by another man while I was on a business trip. And that man is Miguel. I made sure to look directly at him as I spoke. The murmurs in the room grew louder. Some board members looked shocked, others uncomfortable. And what does that have to do with your professional conduct? Julia retorted, trying to regain control. You assaulted Miguel, and that's unacceptable both in our home and at work. Oh, so that's your angle? I asked, feigning surprise. You're using a personal matter to justify firing me, even though my professional record is spotless? Perhaps the board should consider who is truly acting unprofessionally here. Mr. Augusto interjected. Julia, is it true what Fernando is saying? Are you bringing personal issues into the corporate sphere? For the first time, Julia hesitated, her confidence wavering. That doesn't matter. He's a threat to the integrity of the workplace. Besides, Miguel is already preparing a lawsuit against him for homophobia because of that punch. Homophobia? I asked, incredulous. Miguel, if you're going to sue me, at least be honest. I hit you because you disrespected my marriage, not because you're gay. I won't tolerate a twisted version of the facts. The board murmured again, uncomfortable with the mention of a homophobia accusation. The focus should be on company leadership, I continued. Julia, as president, you're letting personal problems override the company's interests. That's not just unethical, it's dangerous. Mr. Augusto spoke once more. Julia, I'm hearing very concerning things. I believe the board must seriously review your conduct as president. Julia's face flushed. You can't be serious. I'm the president of this company. Everything I've done has been to protect it. Bringing security guards into a board meeting to fire a respected employee for personal reasons. Does that seem like protection to you? Augusto shot back sharply. The vote was swift. The majority of the board decided to remove Julia from her position as president for the company's sake. Furious, she stormed out of the room, dragging Miguel behind her. Miguel, for his part, kept throwing angry glares in my direction. In the following days, Miguel's lawsuit for homophobia was officially filed. But with the evidence I'd gathered and the witnesses supporting me, the case was quickly dismantled. The court dismissed the accusations and noted that using a personal conflict to defame me was an abuse of the judicial system. Miguel left the courtroom humiliated, his defeat resonating both inside and outside the company. Meanwhile, Julia's departure left the presidency vacant, and the board needed someone who could restore stability after a week of scandals. Recognizing my consistent track record and professional conduct, they began discussing a definitive solution. At an extraordinary board meeting, Mr. Augusto, my longtime ally, took the floor. Ladies and gentlemen, it's undeniable that Fernando has shown integrity, confidence, and commitment to this company, even amidst personal chaos. I propose he be appointed as the next president. The proposal was met with nods of approval and praise. Several board members cited specific projects I had led and commended my resilience in the face of adversity. The vote was unanimous. When my appointment was announced, I was momentarily speechless. I deeply appreciate the trust you've placed in me. I promise to repay it with unwavering dedication and results. I know these recent events have been challenging, but I'm committed to restoring trust and leading this company to new heights. With my appointment formalized, I immediately began initiatives to rebuild the company's reputation and stabilize the work environment. I restructured teams, implemented stricter ethics policies, and set up a safe channel for employees to report issues without fear of retaliation. Miguel tried to maintain a presence for a while, but his credibility was shattered, and he eventually resigned. Julia, meanwhile, disappeared from the corporate scene, never to interfere in my path again. Looking back, I feel a mix of gratitude and satisfaction. Gratitude for those who believed in me when everything seemed lost, and satisfaction for having prevailed fairly and justly. Now, as president, I work every day to ensure no one else endures what I did, and to help the company thrive on solid values and mutual respect. Just when I thought the past was behind me, I received a message from a former colleague. Fernando, you won't believe this. Julia and Miguel are caught up in an even bigger scandal. I immediately asked for details. Apparently, Julia's baby had been born, but a few months later she betrayed Miguel publicly, suing him for child support. I couldn't help but burst into genuine, loud laughter. It was almost unbelievable. The same woman who had schemed to bring me down was now tearing apart her own accomplice. She had used Miguel just as she tried to use me, and in the end, he faced the humiliation she had planned for me. Total comeuppance. It was a strange, yet deeply satisfying feeling. Sometimes revenge comes unplanned, and watching Julia and Miguel tear each other apart was more gratifying than the day Julia was ousted from the presidency. It was the ultimate proof that the universe has a deliciously ironic way of delivering justice. I laughed heartily that day, and when I returned to work, my smile lasted for hours. After all, some battles are best won by simply watching from a distance.